30 seconds? Okay, it's 10 o'clock, and we'll call the meeting to order for our Residence Council. At our first, we will invite Harriet Chase to play our national anthem, and if everyone would please stand, I think we have the words. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I'd like to introduce Linda Teague, who will introduce our reflection leader.
Have you ever thought about how events from your past set the stage for what you did as an adult? Think back for a moment to a time or an event that you can recall that may have, perhaps unknowingly at the time, somehow set you on a life's journey to a certain career or certain calling. Today, Martha Inman, a very special Westminster Oaks staff person, is going to reflect back to what events may have brought her here to Westminster for such a time as this.
And before I can say a bit of advice to sage people like you, Madam President, can you come forward? Even though it's currently closed, I can't give advice to the Residence Council without paying my Acorn Boutique bill. It may be more than $7 or under $7, but I came up with that eternal number, $7. It could be your first check as president.
Thank you. And for those that still owe money, and if you know how much, this would be very helpful, and you can send a check to our treasurer.
Let me see if I can not go too slow here. You need to know 2 facts. I always went to school in Leon County. I lived on the line, was born at Archbold, brought home to 1/4 mile on the plantation, and went to school in Florida and church part of the time in Miccosukee and part of the time at First Presbyterian in Thomasville. This thing I wrote today was in '99. I had it in my file cabinet, and 3 times it appeared since Linda asked me, so I think I meant to read it to you. It's an anecdote about some years at the Presbyterian, at First Presbyterian in Thomasville. But remember that I wrote it in '99. I had felt for a while as a youth that I would be a DCE, Director of Christian Education. When the time came to go off to school, I found I had not seriously, or was not seriously entertaining the idea any longer. I suppose I was following the dreams of the world more than I realized. I know that in later years, when having the opportunity to visit with Catherine Jones and Cindy Sechrist, who both became Christian counselors and a published author, one of them, I wish I had had their commitment and discipline. I did, however, work at the church in Thomasville one summer as the interim or temporary director. In truth, it was a matter of people with lots more experience than me giving me some of theirs. It was a good summer. My mainstays were Bobby and Carden Russell, the youth advisors, and Mrs. Zalumas, the church secretary, whose husband was famous for the hot dogs down at the pool room on Broad Street in Thomasville. We ate them for lunch a lot. And also Dr. Bill Nearing, our pastor, who had played for the Chicago Bears and sung opera before the Lord called him. How interesting. He was fabulous. But I also remember the young mothers who were planning vacation Bible school, and we've all taught that, haven't we? Most of my involvement was with the junior high kids. And really, with any luck, I could somehow squeeze nearly all of them into the 1963 Volkswagen Bug I had inherited from my sister Alice. And we even brought Jenny from the First Baptist sometimes. Well, I did think I did pretty well that summer, except for my lapse of judgment. That would shock Shannon. One day, when I stopped at the Sing store, how many of you still call it the Sing store? Instead of Circle K. Yeah. When I stopped at the Sing store on Gordon Avenue and let the girls get a frozen cream pie. You see, Emily Porter had been out of circuit with a sinus surgery. Her facial features were still in a delicate state, and her friends wanted to do something fun to get her back in the swing of things. They decided to ring the doorbell and gently toss the pie in her face. I mean, who knew you had to let it thaw first? That's what her mother, Juanita Porter, the dancing teacher, said to me, and she actually questioned my supervisory skills and my possible intelligence deficiency. Shannon's been there too. After firmly speaking the truth in love to me, she forgave me eventually. In 1979, I continued. Daily, God's marvelous and mysterious ways are brought home to me. For the last year and a half, I've been an activity director at Westminster Oaks, one of Florida's Presbyterian retirement communities. We used to eat in the dining room. You all need to know that. Over the coffee pot in the dining room hang several pieces of the same china pattern we used in the old fellowship hall. In the back of my mind, I constantly wonder, do I remember hearing that it was donated here? And at chapel each week, as we open the precious maroon editions of the hymn book that have now been discarded and passed on to places like retirement homes, I wonder, did we send our books here? At any rate, I feel at home here because I have heard God whisper, you did become a DC of sorts now, didn't you? I hear it as I plan the programs for my residents or visit with their relatives, offering perhaps only compassion. As I lead the ladies in prayer when we have read something heartbreaking or fearful during current events, as I sing with them and play the piano, as we laboriously climb on the bus, albeit with laughter, for a day trip outing. The Westminster bus is a little larger and more comfortable than the 63 Volkswagen, for the residents' frames are more fragile than Evelyn Emily's 13-year-old nose. But the calling is still the same. So let's borrow from my Methodist heritage also and look at each other and say to each other, from your past experiences, your present time, and your future still here as you work in this resident council, look at each other and say, the world is our parish. Have a great day.
Thank you, Martha, and I think it's a God's blessing that you are here. And I think we all enjoy everything about Martha with a smile. I am behind the times, and Everett gave me explicit instructions to keep up with the remote, so I'm hoping to do that along the way. Okay, now we have Darlene, who's going to offer a motion.
I would like to request a motion to accept the April 15 minutes of the resident council meeting.
Second? They received the minutes and they reviewed them, so all in favor of the motion, say aye. The motion passed. And now I'm going to introduce our new treasurer, Gary Stillwell. He's going to give us our treasurer's report. And Gary, I'm going to leave that for you.
Let me see if it works here.
Here.
All right, it worked. Very good. Yeah, I wanted to wrap up last fiscal year first, and then tell you what the current year will be. At any rate, the last fiscal year ending on April the 30th, our income budget was $38,235. Expenses were $49,652, and it's not yet. Okay, never mind. The numbers I just gave you were correct, but it came close there. Anyway, the total income from the boutique and the copy machine was that's right, $33,772, and the boutique did very well for us last time, and they attained 88% of the budget. Total expenses was 28,000 something, and the total we didn't spend near that much money. So this year we're not going to have that much money as the budget for the expenses. At any rate, the general fund, we ended up with $70,000. The employee gift fund, we had over $31,000. And the savings account that we have has $35,000 for a total amount of $136,000, which is quite good. And we're going to really need it this time because the boutique is not going to make any money for a while. Okay, so at this was posted in its full amount. The record was posted up on it's this thing right here. It has all of the details of last year's expenses and income. Now, if I get this. Okay, we had the last three treasurers had performed a fiscal year-end audit just a few days ago, and it was accurate to the penny, which was, almost unbelievable. But it was due to Marvin Rubenstein's excellent work as the last 3 years treasurer. Okay. Now for this year. Let me see if these numbers match up. For the fiscal year starting in May 1st, the income budget is $38,235. The expenses were $38,593. Our total income so far is only $645. That's 2% of our budget, which we have, 11 and a half more months to go. The expenses were $215, and that's only 1% of our stuff so far. But the most important numbers are these, the amount of money that we have. We have over $70,000 as the general fund, over $31,000 as the employee gift fund, so that's a good start on the gift fund for later this year. And the total, the savings account was $35,000, and the total accounts was $137,021. So we're in good shape as far as money goes, and we will hopefully augment this with the boutique when it comes back. At any rate, the May full report will be up on MyWLife by June 1st. Thank you. Oops.
Do I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report? Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. And the motion passed. I do want to say a word about the boutique. For most of you, you know we're going to really miss the boutique. I was a treasurer on Monday afternoon, and it was such a joy to see everybody come in, find their treasures, find those individuals coming in donating treasures, and it was just an exciting time for our community. And I do want to thank the Yeoman's Job that a few of the volunteers have been working in the last week, because we know, the downstairs and the flooding, and we had a crew that went in and boxed up as much as they could, thanks to volunteering the garage at the Meandering Party House. We've been able to take some of our important items that we have saved, and a few pieces of our furniture. So we know people are asking. I had things I was ready to donate. So what we need for you to do until the boutique is open is to be discretionary in what you would like to give. It would be an item that you would think someone else would like to purchase, because oftentimes we will get boxes and boxes of things that somebody just cleared, and it's just easier to box it up, and then the poor volunteers would have to go through and go through it to see what we need to put out. So as you're thinking about things that you want to donate. Also, I mentioned about some, if you do know you have a bill, it might be helpful for you to clear that. Make sure we note it so we can take that off the books, because I'm sure they're saved. But I do appreciate all of those volunteers who have worked, who continue to work, because it's sort of a work in progress. I think Shannon will probably give us a better update as to what's happening downstairs. But anyway, we're going to miss the boutique, and we hope that it comes back soon. It is the main financial business or whatever that provides the funds for our Residents Council to do all the wonderful things that we enjoy here at Westminster. Okay, now we have Sandra Wiley, who's going to introduce some of our wonderful new residents. And let me see, there. I'm learning.
Good morning, and once again, I want to thank you for your interest in our new people who come to us, for listening to their identities that they bring and make them so special, and enrich our community and make us the family of love that we are. So thank you. Our first person is Dorothy B. Burrows. Dorothy, would you stand? And she's living in Azalea Gardens. Thank you, Dorothy. She was born and raised in Seattle, Washington. Her father worked for Boeing Aircraft, and her mother was a realtor, a licensed realtor from 1960, and owned her own real estate office, retiring after 33 years. Dorothy worked for Boeing and Todd Shipyards while attending college as a music major. In 1968, she was hired by Eastern Airlines, and she had wonderful 21 exciting years as a stewardess, or flight attendant, we call them now, and went on to be the supervisor of flight attendants. So that was a wonderful experience, she tells us. After Eastern, Dorothy held several positions, including travel agent, I imagine that was leading to that, and pharmacy technician. Who knew? 1974, Dorothy met and married her husband, Mac Burrows of Miami. She and her husband designed and built 2 homes, one in Stockbridge, Georgia, the other in Lake City, Florida, both in air parks. And get this, they also built their own airplane. They enjoyed going to air shows every year at Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and Lake City, Florida. Following the death of her husband, she lived in Lake City, the Villages, and Tallahassee, moving to Westminster from Camellia Oaks here in Tallahassee, I believe. And we are so happy to have Dorothy Burrows with us. Next, we have Louise Rill, and she is living in 1529 Parchment Cove. Louise? We're so happy to have Louise. Now, her grandmother lived in Oak South. 43 years later, Louise moved here. Thrilled with her new neighbors, she tells me, and her home on Parchment Cove with her poodle, Jasmine. Born in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, she lived in Elizabeth and Cranford, New Jersey, and she wants you to know this is not New York City, this is New City, New York, which is not too far from New York City. She graduated college at State University of New York. Married life took her to Michigan and Indiana in 1972 to Tallahassee with her 2 small children. She has a master's degree from FSU from 1977, and she worked on a reading comprehension grant with Wakulla County Schools. Having taught, I know how important those grants are. She taught English as a second language at Bellevue Middle School. That's a challenge. And she was in instructional systems and had an ABD to do that. She consulted in performance technology and developed training materials for state agencies in Florida, and 14 years in the Department of Education in Florida. She was appointed by Governor Childs, one of our favorite people, to the Board of Examiners for the Governor Sterling Award. And she served on the board of directors of the Children's Home Society. Her husband, Ralph Rill, an FSU biochemist, passed away in 2009. Louise wishes her family treasures, 4 children, 7 grandchildren, lived closer. However, she's excited to visit 4 granddaughters graduating from either high school or college in different states this month. A recent highlight is that she completed and published her novel. It's called From Fragile Fragments in 2021, and she has donated a copy to the library, should you be interested, and I am. Louise loves her OLLI classes, which she's been in for over 20 years, and she loves gardening, her book groups, and hopes to volunteer at Westminster Oaks when her second bedroom is clear enough to sleep guests. We've been there. We know about that, don't we? Thank you. We welcome you, Louise. And now I get to introduce what I call my chosen sister. Not my blood sister, but just one I chose to be a sister with. And that is Mary Lois Mayfield, who lives in 322 Perry Center. Excuse me, Lois. And here she is, Mary Lois Mayfield. Wave to everybody. Now, Mary Lois comes from a distinguished family here in Tallahassee. She was born in Tallahassee to Maude and Jean Stone. Her father's interest in education took him to the Dean of Education at FSU after other education titles. Upon his retirement, the School of Education became the Stone Building. You may be familiar with that. Her mother's interest was in music, and she was the First Baptist Church organist and pianist for over 25 years. Her childhood home was 3 lots east of Westcott Gate, and it is now the FSU President's parking lot. That'll give you a little clue when you go around and look at that. At 7 years old, her father built a family home on Jefferson Street, where she lived until she married. Mary Lois graduated from Florida High, and she majored at FSU in classical culture and Latin, with a minor in music and a master's in social work. That's a broad area. Following graduation, she married and moved to Cairo, and it was in Cairo that she started her teaching career. Eventually, back to Tallahassee, she taught at Holy Comfort Episcopal School and Maclay School. She entered, after that, in the field of counseling at InnerQuest Counseling Center, which led her to the College of Medicine, FSU's College of Medicine, to counsel third and fourth year students in the medical school as they entered their first experiences in medicine. That's a big job, and she loved it. She was invited to serve, about that time, she was invited to serve on the board of Southern Scholarship Foundation. This is special because it was founded in 1955 by her father, Mode Stone. There are 5,000 plus students with outstanding academic abilities, good character, and financial need who have received free housing at FSU, FAMU, University of Florida, and Florida Gulf Coast. And the numbers continue to grow to allow these young people to pursue their education. What a great organization. Mary Lois's mother once lived in Oak South. Now Mary Lois is enjoying physical therapy here, programs in the McGuire Center, and being with new and old friends. She is proud of her daughter, her 2 sons, and 7 grandchildren, 2 boys and 3 girls. And we are very happy to have Mary Lois Mayfield with us now. Thank you again for letting me have the opportunity and the joy of introducing our new people to our family.
Thank you and welcome to all of you. For the last 3 years, I have been the president of the FLICRA organization, and for those of you that don't understand those letters, it's Florida Life Care Residents Association. And we hope that many of you and most of you are members of that organization. Because I assumed this position, I have stepped down. I will be a past president of the FLICRA organization, and our new president, who has come on board, and we're so appreciative that she's taken on this challenge, Sally Butsine, and she has a few words about FLICRA.
Well, good morning. I'm a pretty new resident myself, and I'm fairly new to FLICRA, and I'm honored to take over for Jane. She promised me she would stay on and help, so she's been invaluable. But for those of you like me, that FLICRA is a big word, but what you need to remember is the raw part, Residents Association. Because what FLICRA is our voice in the legislature to look out for the residents. There are 72 continuing care communities in Florida, and we're one of the largest ones. And 51 of these communities are members of FLICRA, so we could do better. And we have a pretty good representation of our residents here, but we need more, because the more people that we have as members, the more influence we have as residents in the legislature. And I have a friend once that always used to say, you know, the one thing about politicians, they know how to get in front of a parade. So if we have a lot of people who are looking out for the residents' rights in legal matters, that really helps. So today we really want to encourage you. We've got some brochures. Our membership chair, Sarah Cardona, has got some brochures for how to join. If you're not already a member, I really encourage you. It's an important organization, the more I've learned about it. And I'd like to introduce your neighbors who are our board members here in the FLICRA organization, and if you would stand as I call your name, so you know who to talk to if you want to learn more about this good organization. So we've got Sarah Cardona, Ruth Cates, Bill Gill, Major Harding, Jane Hudson, Dee Jones is our treasurer, Wayne Largent, Bob Lindquist, Tom Morgan, Judy Skinner, Terry Ward, Huel Wheeler, and Jim Wiley. So these are your neighbors that are members of our board, and we encourage you to learn more from them. And finally, I want to introduce Charlotte Cummings, if she's here. She is our district director, so she represents us with the state organization. So FLYCRA is a big deal, and if you're not a member, please consider joining. You can pick up a brochure that gives you information about how to join, and we welcome your questions and your participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now I'd like to welcome our new members of the board. As you know, most of our board members have continued from last year, but we do have Darlene Osterhoff, who has joined us as a voting member. She was our secretary last year, but a non-voting, so she has become a voting member, which is very important. And of course, our treasurer, Gary Stillwell, and we want to welcome them. But I'd like for Lanny Cardona to come up. Lanny was our past president. He left big shoes to fill. The only thing I can say about Lanny, I think you'll appreciate that I will do regular timing and not military timing, if you notice some. But Lanny has been an excellent leader, and it's going to be hard to follow him. He's so energetic, as you know. He's up early. He's around the campus. He knows everything, and he will be a great mentor for me. And I just wanted to give him a small token of our appreciation from the board, and hope he and Sarah will enjoy this small gift. So, thank you, Lanny. Thank you. Thank you. And I think now, Shannon, we can have some comments from our executive director.
Good morning. How are you? I'd like to say hello to Miss Mayfield. And my children say hi. You were their Latin teacher at Holy Comforter. And so I just took a picture of what was on here and sent it to James and Audrey. And they say hi and they miss you. So you were really, really good to them. And I think Latin is just an awesome language to learn. So got a couple of things to share with you, but first I'd like to share some of the sweet notes that you send to us about our team members. This is about Daryl. Wanted to let you know Daryl did a wonderful job for us over the weekend. Our garbage disposal died a sudden and complete death. Friday night, Daryl came Saturday morning. At the time he said he was competent, efficient, and very pleasant. Also, again, want to compliment John the painter. He too, pleasant, competent, and follows up on things. Two terrific employees. So when you send us these, number one, I always forward them to HR, so it goes in their file, and I also send them in for legendary nominations, and those legendary nominations are read to them in our team member town meeting. So we have team member town meetings like we have resident town meetings. So they get to hear this from you themselves, as well as all their colleagues that are in town meeting that day too. So your kind remarks are very, very meaningful to our team members. And they also receive a financial award as well. So again, thank you for doing that. So we also have state survey here in the health center. They showed up yesterday morning to survey our health center. Of course, the state of Florida Agency for Healthcare, one of our 41 regulatory bodies, showed up on Sunday, 5 surveyors, and so most of them are nurses. So they will be here for the week in the health center probably until Wednesday or Thursday. They have a certain number of off-hour surveys that they are expected to do. So they picked Westminster Oaks to do them. So just to share that with you. So if you walk in and see signs, it's not a complaint, it's a routine survey. I was told to let you know about Capitol Bells, that Capitol Bells has been moved to tonight from tomorrow. For those of you who were planning to come to that program tomorrow, Lynn Kimmel told me to pass that on to you. You probably are seeing pods on the campus. Right now, they're in the overflow parking lot of Oak South. The reason they're there is because a lot of our staff, just like you, have storage bins downstairs, and so they're moving the things that they're choosing to keep into those pods so that the remediation program can begin. Remediation is scheduled for June 3rd. This is based on the water damage from the flood that happened April 11th. The good news is that that water was cleaned up very, very quickly, so we're extremely thankful for that. The bad news is that when we brought contractors to come and look at the space, they took moisture readings, and in those moisture readings, I apologize, they still found moisture downstairs. So we can't do anything until that moisture is addressed. One of the things that we discovered in walking around with our contractors, Coastal Reconstruction is the one, you're probably seeing them with their hats, is that it will take probably 30 days to remediate the space. It's the reconstruction that will take time. So one of the reasons why we're getting pods is so that we can move our stuff into those pods. We started our phone calls to the residents yesterday. We have more today. We have about 46 of you that have cages, storage cages and spaces downstairs that were affected. The reason they're affected was not necessarily that there's water damage to your things, but those storage cages are built out of wood, and wood cannot be sanitized. So the storage cages have to be removed, and so we've engaged a company, they're called Pack on the Go. And so if you have a storage cage, and we'll continue to make the phone calls to you, but if you have a storage cage, our Pack on the Go company will come pack all your things, put it in boxes. We've already identified a house and an apartment that we can move them to so we can keep them on campus. The problem is you won't have access to them for 3 to 6 months. And that 3 to 6 months is not based on the remediation, it's based on the build back. So as they're taking out walls, sanitizing, heating the space, all the things that I'm learning very quickly that they have to do, it will be putting those walls back, and then new flooring and baseboards and cages and things like that. So that's the thing that takes time, not the remediation. Right now, the air quality is very good. We brought in a hygienist, Kyle, who's a part of Coastal Reconstruction, and the hygienist said air quality is very good. However, when we start pulling out the flooring, the baseboards, the drywall, things like that, it won't be. And we don't want you to be in the middle of that trying to get your stuff. So that's why we're calling people now, asking for them, if they want to have access to something, go ahead and get it, or tell us to move it, so we can take care of that for you. Otherwise, you don't have to do a thing. Our folks will pack it up, put it in boxes, label and date it, and put it away for you. And when we rebuild the storage cages, we'll be bringing them back, okay? So again, phone calls are forthcoming. I tried to make all mine yesterday. I left voicemails for some of you. Vicki will be calling her list today. So that's what's going on there. So a couple of things that I know are probably more important than that is coffee. Yes. So what we did is Paul, who's pretty new with us, I met with Paul and I said, look, Paul, if you don't do anything else, you got to move that coffee. Okay? It's a big deal. And so he has already located a new place for the coffee pot that's downstairs. It's still there. So we've already had White's Plumbing come run new lines, and we've already got a call into Community Coffee to move the Community Coffee pot to the new location, which will be right here in the bistro. So you already see where the table is set up with the black netting. That's where the coffee and the supplies will go. Meanwhile, Country Store is being moved. So I think we had a big sale a week ago so that everybody could come and buy as much from the Country Store as you could, so we don't have to move it. And we have all the refrigeration and freezers being moved up now. So we're starting to plug in everything. The Coastal Reconstruction was very kind to go ahead and remediate several pieces of equipment for us, even though that's not in their planned timeline. So they remediated the exam tables in the clinic so that they could be moved up to the 4th floor Perry Center, and they remediated all of the equipment in the country store so that that could come to the bistro. We already have a POS system set up in the bistro, and we have 2 of our team from IT here, Greg with Capital and JD, and they are both running phone lines and data ports for us because we're moving all of those offices downstairs, including maintenance, including Paul, including Laura, Lynn, Kelly, Mina, Meredith and her team, beauty salon. So we're moving everybody right now. The Friday memo should include all the new locations for everybody. We sent out a separate email for clinic. So, and just to let you know, we just did sign a new agreement with FSU for their days of service. However, with the flood, they decided to go ahead and coordinate with their primary health clinic, which is on Roberts Avenue. So any of you who want to see your FSU doctors, then what you'll need to do is get on the bus schedule so we can send you over there, okay? So meanwhile, the clinic and its services are going on to the 4th floor. The exam tables are already up there. The phone lines, there's already one present. Others are being added, so reception will have a line and both nurses will have a line. And then we've already ordered the room dividers so that you can have an exam in private, should you wish. I assume you wish. So you will see a lot of activity being moved to Perry Center right now. And what's interesting is the Perry Center residents are loving it because they like the camaraderie. So just wanted to share that with you. Country store, the adjuster is actually here. So he is here with Tim and Coastal Reconstruction. Also, we sent out a notification to you. This is something that's required with assisted living and skilled nursing, that the emergency manual has been submitted to the fire department, fire marshal, and emergency management county, Alex McKinnon. So all of those, that's by law, we're required to share with our residents that live in skilled and assisted. We're sharing with you as well. You probably have already heard the news that Erin, our new chaplain, is going to be leaving Friday. That's her last day. And we're extremely sad because we think she has done an incredible job in the short time she's been here. And it makes me extremely sad to share that with you. She just shared it with the department heads and I believe spiritual committee, but it's something that she has to do, so we will be looking at new chaplain applications. A couple other things. I've been asked about the flood. In particular, one of the things that I was asked is, how are you going to keep this from happening again? That's a great question. So what we have right now is we have the ability through our regular pump system. We have 2 sump pumps on either side of Oak South and Perry Center. The flash flood that happened on April 11th, it overwhelmed the pumps. One of the things we discovered in our reconnaissance is that the roof drain from Oak South was draining into the drain system right outside the 2 pumps in Oak South. That helped overwhelm those pumps. So what you'll find now is that entire drain system has been moved to another location. So we don't expect that part to happen again. Meanwhile, we've engaged an engineer to come out and tell us exactly what size pumps we need for both buildings. Now, right now they're sandbagged, and we have a temporary 6-inch pump in the Perry Center. So if you go to the breezeway and you look down, you'll see this big contraption down there, and that is a pump that we are currently renting to make sure that if we have another flash flood, that we have the ability then to address that. and make sure that the pump can pull all that water away. What we've asked the engineers to do is tell us what else we need to do to divert the water. So it may require a berm, it may require another drain. We don't know yet. We won't know until we get the report. So I believe when Tim was here talking to you in town meeting, he may have said, hey, we had 4-inch pumps on both sides. For whatever reason, we ended up with 2-inch pumps later. So we believe those 2-inch pumps are likely not sufficient based on this last experience. So we think we should go back to 4-inch pumps, maybe bigger. So the engineer will tell us in his report exactly what we need to do, both pumps and other things. So you may see additional contractors out here, pouring more concrete to make a berm, those kinds of things, or potentially adding another drain at the top as well as the bottom of the slope. That would be Perry Center in particular. Okay. And I apologize for jumping around so much. One more thing, I received an email about Curana. So Curana is a healthcare system that has been coming into one at a time each of our communities and taking the place of the clinic. What they do is they hire the clinic staff, and then they bring in their own physicians and nurse practitioners. And what that allows us to, which has been a real game changer in a very positive way, is it means that there's somebody in the clinic, all the clinic hours, that can write you orders. Not only do an exam, but write you orders and send those off to your pharmacy. And that's really, really nice, because right now, only the FSU physicians can do that. And you can continue to see your FSU physician, and they plan to come back as soon as we reopen that clinic space, but it has to be remediated first. So having the Curana physicians, the one that we interviewed that we really like and we made an offer to, it happens to be a hospitalist at TMH. So that's really good for quality of care, that you can see a doctor in our clinic, and he may be the exact same one you get at TMH. And then we're sending him a credentialing packet, as well as the nurse practitioner we interviewed last week, a credentialing packet so that they can see residents in Health Center too. So there's the potential for that to be your primary care physician in the health center. And FSU does the exact same thing. They have the ability to see you in the clinic, and they have the ability to follow you in the health center and also see you in assisted living. So I think it will be an extremely positive thing. They've already met together several months ago, Curana and FSU, and talked about coexisting and how that would work. Curana came and met with Health Services Advisory Committee to speak to them about what their plans were. And then we've invited them to come to a future town meeting to tell you more about their care and services as well. So the feedback we get from other communities is they love to have that additional resource of having a physician and nurse practitioner who can examine you and write orders right then. You don't have to wait for our nurses to fax orders or requests to a doctor. So I think you'll really, really like that. And they've already set up interviews with our staff. So it's really, really nice. I think that's all I have, unless you have questions for me, and I will try to answer those for you. So, yes, ma'am. I know, I called you this weekend. Yes. It is dry.
So here's the practical thing. How much is the pod gonna cost us? I mean, I guess I'll still be paying the $6 a month that I pay for the storage?
Actually, the storage charges have ceased
Okay,
because we have to have the packing company come and pack everything. A lot of people are having to go to their storage units and move things. For that inconvenience, we said, you know what, we're gonna waive the storage fees
all right,
for you.
okay.
So
but
it doesn't cost you anything.
the pod doesn't cost anything. I mean,
I'm not sure what you're asking me about a pod.
Well, you said everything's going into a pod.
Our staff, their things are going into pods.
Oh,
Your
okay.
stuff is being packed by the Peck on the Go company,
Uh-huh,
and it's going into an empty house, probably Emerald Chase,
okay.
empty house, empty apartment, possibly a Chase and
But
Gardens.
who's paying that company?
We are.
The
We pay
Westminster
for the
Oaks?
packing.
Okay, so in other words, I'm gonna be ahead of the game by $6 a month?
Yes, you will be ahead of the game.
That's very nice, Sharon, thank you.
Welcome. You're welcome. Yes, ma'am. I know, I left you a voicemail too. Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else? I will try to answer your questions. I'm learning an awful lot about insurance and floods. So I'm still in quite the learning curve on how to do all this. I'm really hoping not to ever do it again. Hi, Mr. Bruley. Yes, sir.
You mentioned insurance. I've heard a rumor that insurance is not going to cover most of the cost of this restoral.
So we had an insurance, our initial insurance adjuster come out and do a review of the space, and they said, well, basically it's an old garage, so it's insured as any other, garage space would be. So so there is some insurance for it. However, our insurance person at our home office, Marcia, discovered that we actually do have a separate flood insurance policy, which is interesting because we're not in a floodplain or an evacuation zone. So I was really relieved to hear that we had an additional policy. That policy may cover further contents. So I'm really hopeful. The adjuster for that policy is here right now. He's downstairs with Tim and James from Coastal. Anything else? I'll try to answer your questions. Yes, ma'am.
The beautiful decorations, the old town stores and restaurants and all of that were done years ago, will that have to be pulled off to check for mold behind it?
Absolutely. More than likely, all of that will go away. So here's the thing. I walked around with James from Coastal and his team, and they have different, and probably some of you out here know what these are, but they basically have different gauges for different products. So they have a moisture gauge for like a wooden baseboard. They have a moisture gauge for concrete, and they have a moisture gauge for drywall. So quite interesting, as we were, say for example, in the rec room, they took that moisture gauge and they went up the wall, up the wall, up the wall, up the wall, and they were up to here, and it was still moist. This is in the rec room across from the ping pong room. I know the table tennis room. So Oak South really got the lion's share of the deeper water. Perry Center, it wasn't as bad. And if you think about Perry Center, there's not as much. Of course, there's a lot of storage there, but you have maintenance down one hall. And then down the other hall, past the double doors, is additional storage for like housekeeping and foundation and so forth. So it's really Oak South where you have much more of the decorations, the facades, of course on the way, and then you have, your boutique and theater and all of that.
And the chapel.
And chapel, yeah. And chapel, we pulled that carpet out first. And we said, we may need a contractor to come in here and tell us what's going on. And it's a good thing that we did, because they said, hey, it's still not dry. And we have fans going and dehumidifiers going. And he's like, this contracting company has to basically come in visqueen and sanitize and cut drywall a foot or 2 or 4, depending on where the moisture is. And they have to bake it. They have to bring the temperature up to 99 degrees to kill anything that's alive in there. And then begins the build back process. I will be very surprised if the hallways look the same as they do now. Very surprised. Meanwhile, as I'm asking you to come and check your storage units, the air quality is still good. So because our team got in there, I mean, they were there at like 1:30 in the morning. Tim was there, then Karen and her team and Ralph and everybody else. So they got in there, got contractors, and started sucking out the water, drying it, and putting out dehumidifiers. They did that really, really quickly. And that's to our benefit because that gives us time to reroute everybody, get our stuff cleaned out, and give you the opportunity to look at your storage too, if you wish.
Do you know how high up the walls in the chapel it's damp?
I do not, because they have that wood on the front. And of course, they went the back. You know, you can open all of those windows and actually walk in that back space. So we have to leave that to the professionals to say how much of that's going to come out. So I would be surprised if it's less than 2 feet,
May I
which
ask
is going to be almost all the wood.
May I ask everybody to pray for the chapel?
I'd like for you to pray for the whole space. And if you can fit my name in there somewhere, that'd be good too. So I pray for God to please bless Westminster Oaks in spite of me, you know? And it's a real lift for my staff to do all the things they've got to do. Now, the good news is we're doing some serious spring cleaning. Probably should have done that a long time ago, frankly. So we're doing some spring cleaning. But the bad news is there's a lot of stuff, and there's some really good stuff that probably cannot be sanitized. And what I'll tell you, I think one of those things is, I don't know for sure, is the nativity set, which breaks my heart. So the sanitizing of anything wood basically requires it to just be completely stripped and sanded and all of that. So that's one of the reasons why those storage cages are going away, is because it can't be sanitized. And I've already talked to Tim about what we want to build back and what it should be made of. I think I took more than my time. Sorry. I apologize for running on. But anyway, but there's a lot going on. And so I was looking at my last note here, and I couldn't quite read it. And I finally figured out what it was: grace and patience. So we're asking if you'll give us your grace and patience right now. As we are having to move, we're having to make a lot of decisions very, very quickly. And some of my decisions, I'll say, are based on tenure. So for example, when we had to move offices, I went to the employee that was with us the longest, Lynn. And I said, Lynn, look, you've been here 28 years, 30 years. You get first pick. And whatever you pick will be fine with me, and then we'll ask everybody else to pick. So we're trying to be mindful and kind with all of our choices, and and respect people who've been here a very long time. I mean, Lynn's invested her whole adult life in working here. So she got first choice, so she picked second floor. So she's down from Martha. So heaven knows, with those two together all day, what in the world's going to happen on campus. I'm telling you what. And then Kelly's at the next office. So there's a whole group of people that are all together. So they're going to be scheming. You can count on it. Yes, ma'am.
I was told that the Chinese symbol for emergency is the same as the symbol for opportunity. So this might lead us forward in a wonderful way that we hadn't expected.
I hope so. There have been a lot of blessings, honestly, that have come through it, and having our team work together so seamlessly and support each other. We have daily meetings now. I adopted that as a best practice. One of the things on your quality of life survey that came out was better coordination between departments. That was stated as an opportunity for us, that we needed to better know what each other were doing. So now that we have daily stand-up meetings at 9:30, what I'm seeing is people pair off and saying, how can I help you? What can I do? My team will help your team. And I really appreciate that about them. It's just such a wonderful group of people that have been making very quick decisions. I mean, Meredith moved her whole program, all of it, to Canopy Fitness and Perry Center. So we're trying very much to not have any break in service for any of the things that you like to enjoy. We're just trying to relocate them. Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to know, Are the air ducts still being cleaned in all the different residents or different buildings, or has that been put on hold?
I don't want to answer that question, but we can pose that to Tim. We can ask Tim about the air duct cleaning. I know that it was taking place in Canopy, but I don't think it's done yet. So there's no need for us to put that on hold, because that's a contractor taking care of that for us. So if you're asking about Canopy, I believe that's continuing. I can't speak for the other buildings. Yes, ma'am. So the question is, what happens to your storage items that are wood? So most of the storage units were not adversely affected, the contents, because a lot of you had them up on pallets or something. So so your units, your storage should be fine. It's the cages that are on the ground that were adversely affected that cannot be sanitized. So we've been advised all those cages have to be ripped out and taken away. And so that's what we're gonna do. So your contents are fine, and whatever you wanna get, you can, especially if it's something you want access to 3 to 6 months. I'm just saying 3 to 6 months is what I really believe. And for some people, they may want access to their contents. I've had a couple people say, hey, just move it up to my apartment. And we're doing that for them. So, yes, you can. Yes, you can. What we're trying to do right now is get everybody in the habit of not using the lower level. Because as soon as they pull the trigger, we're going to get 24 hours notice they're ready to go. So we already have a tentative start date. If they can go sooner, I would like for them to go sooner, because I'd like for us to have access to that space sooner, frankly. But we're going to have probably 4 or more pods out there. So, for our stuff. But your stuff will be professionally packed by Pack and Go. Anybody else? Grace and patience. Please.
I'm not sure how Shannon sleeps at night, but I think we all want to say a prayer because they've done a yeoman's job in relocating and getting it all together, and I appreciate all the flexibility of our residents. I want to express my appreciation to Robin Gray, because I'm going to be flying out at 1:30 for a 2-week trip to Europe. And so I'm sort of in a hurry to get to the airport. But I do want to give an opportunity for any of the council members to have any comments about anything. And the residents, I know we've had opportunity to question. There are 2 announcements, and Almina Pettit, where's Almina? Carol Bewley, would you come and make your announcement?
Thank you, Jane. Just want to make a plug for the next forum program, which will take place right here, Tuesday of next week, May 28th, 2 p.m. It'll be a presentation by a member of the National Park Service on the Southeast Archaeological Center, which does preservation and interpretation of archaeological relics that have been discovered in the Southeast. So it should be an interesting program, and hopefully you'll all make it. Thank you.
Hey, Carol, what's the date again?
May 28th. Now, Marjorie Turnbull was going to make an announcement, but I think somebody else. Emily, yes. You need a microphone.
Thank you. A meet and greet tonight with Brian Welch in the pool house from 4 to 6, and everyone is invited. So we would love to have you come.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, Brian Welch is our district county commissioner, and he will be in the pool house from 16 to 1800. Subtract 12. So
4 to 6.
But he is our county commissioner. So if you've got any interest in what's going on in our area with the local government that impacts you, then I would suggest that you attend that meeting.
Just a reminder, our next Residence Council meeting is June 17th at 10 o'clock here in the McGuire Center. And all I can say is, I'm leaving on a jet plane.